this will be a big one for you because this has probably kind of started your journey in a lot of ways, how to prioritize self-care in your life and what that has looked like for you.
Well, as you know, I had 3 daughters. I very much devoted my life to raising them. Mm-hmm. And then they grow up and they go away. And then what is left?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can sulk and go into depression and not know what to do.
Yeah.
And I had some dreams. Mm-hmm. So I decided, and honestly, one day I just decided, okay, I'm going back to school. I'm going to finish this degree I started 25 years ago, you know?
Wow.
I had worked as a paraeducator for years. And I admire paraeducators because it is a pretty thankless job, you know?
Yeah.
It's very rewarding, but it's not as, it's a hard job to do.
Yeah.
And so I decided I need to go back to school and finish my degree, and things just started falling into place. And I think you have to have that mindset that, you know, maybe things won't fall into place. What's my next path?
Sure.
But I was fortunate that things, you know, just started falling into place. I had a goal that I wanted to have my degree by 50, and I made it.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I went back to Eastern Washington, and I just one day I said, okay, I'm going to go see this guy that I've been talking to for 20 years about finishing. He was still there. Went in with my transcripts, and he said, you need to take this and this and this, and you'll have a bachelor's in general studies. And I'm like, I don't care what the paper says. I just want a bachelor's degree. So I went back. I was in class with some kids that I'd had as students.
Yeah.
You know, I walked into one classroom where there were 50 kids, and I got, hi, Mama V, what are you doing here?
I bet you did. Oh my gosh.
I can remember taking a class on middle school culture.
Oh God.
I had been in a middle school classroom for, 25 years.
Let me teach this class.
Yeah, exactly. And the instructor had been teaching for 4 years, So, it was an interesting experience being a non-traditional student, but 2 quarters later, I had my bachelor's in general studies. And then I decided, well, I really want my teaching degree. I really want, how can I do that? And there's a lot of avenues for that.
Yeah.
And it just happened that Eastern was going to try this program where they took paraeducators and worked with them and got to get their teaching credentials.
Sure.
And so I called, and she said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And here's the dates of we had to go to boot camp, which was 2 weeks of all day long.
Wow.
And it was, of course, the 2 weeks before my first daughter's wedding, which I was planning, but I did, but it happened and it worked. Yeah. And I had to do a full year of weekends, a couple nights a week sometimes. And then practical stuff at school in my program. And that next spring, I had my teaching credentials.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just the weirdest. I mean, I still look back on it, and it was kind of surreal for a long time.
Absolutely.
And then I went ahead and I wasn't really looking for a job. I liked my job where I was. I'd been in the Davenport School District for over 20 years.
Yeah.
All my kids went there the whole time, graduated. And a friend of mine said, hey, there's an opening in the neighboring town. And I'm like, but there are rivals.
I know. Was it Reardon?
Yes. Yes. My big R up there. Yes. And this friend of mine was a staff member here, and he said, there's a science job open. A middle school science job. And
wow.
I'm like, but I'm a math person.
Yeah.
He looked at me. I can remember this. He looked at me. He says, you can teach anything.
Yeah.
And I had taken a lot of science classes in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And, I interviewed and I thought, and school had already started in Davenport.
Oh, gosh.
And so this was in late August, and I interviewed, and here I am, 4 years into teaching science in the rival school. So, and loving it.
That's amazing. Oh, I bet you're thriving. I mean, you are so good with that age group. Not everybody can do middle school, but Teresa has that energy and way about her. She connects with the kids. And so to have you in the classroom, I think is so great for every kid that gets to come across you. That's awesome. So you just decided finally, like, I'm going to do this thing for myself.
Yep.
Okay.
It was time. And, I talked to my husband about it, but I didn't ask permission. I just said, Here's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Because my life being better is going to make your life better.
100%.
These are the things I need to do for me.
Yeah.
And he was so supportive. And, in his own way, I know he was proud of me.
Yeah.
It had to be a partnership. I couldn't just leave him in the dust.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, he watched me cry those late nights when I was trying to submit things that weren't, I had to get over the things didn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's hard to get over sometimes. And
absolutely.
It's okay. It's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah. No, I love that.
And we got done. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think for you are a giver by nature.
Yes.
An outpourer. And within all this, going to school, you've gone your own, health journey. Within that, confidently setting boundaries, like this is what I can give you, this is what I cannot. Because I'm sure when you walked back into the school space and you were still working and doing all those things, and you had to probably come up with a boundaries plan.
I did. I think that's one of the most important things that we have is that you can only give so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times in my life where I gave too much and it took a toll on me.
Sure.
So, that turning 50 thing, makes us have this weird mindset, and I wasn't going to let it get me. And so, I had to set some family boundaries.
Yeah.
And I had to, they say, get the negativity out of your life. I did. I had friends that it didn't make me feel good to be with them, or it didn't make me feel good to listen to them, or even, watch them on social media or all those things. And I just, it's okay to unfriend somebody. It's okay to, not be in those situations where it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. Well, and I think not all relationships are meant to last a lifetime. Yes. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean anything bad happened. We just change and evolve, and our needs change. And you recognize these relationships are not the best thing for me anymore. And that's okay. I think if we felt more freedom, permission to state that, it doesn't have to be ugly or dramatic or anything like that. It can just be of like, we've entered different seasons. Thank you for the time. And move forward. And
you might realign sometime later in life. I mean, I have friends like that I have friends from my early childhood that I have in the last 5 years reconnected with.
Sure.
And it's just, we're kind of meshing seasons now, but we had different life journeys to get here.
Taking care of our emotional health as much as our physical health. What does that look like for you? And what are some practices that you have put into place to do this and process your emotions in a healthy way? Because we know we carry these things on our body if we don't deal with them.
Well, as you know, my physical health was a priority to me. Was something that I decided after the whole going back to school and teaching. I had taught about 6 months, and I can remember the day, January 7th, I walked into the doctor's office and I sat down, and at that point I was at 374 pounds. And I said, we need to fix this. I can't live like this anymore. It's not I'm not going to be able to help people the way I want to help people if I don't help myself first.
Absolutely.
And, I was 50 and, I was getting ready to go to a big celebration for my 50th birthday. It was 2020. It was early January.
You didn't know. We didn't know what was coming yet.
No idea, Melissa. No idea. I was fretting going on an airplane because, you don't realize how much social anxiety one has at that size.
Yeah. And the world is not kind.
No, the world is not kind. That's exactly right. The world is not kind. The world is not accommodating. The world is really looks at obesity as something so negative.
Yeah.
It's your fault. And it's not. I mean, it couples with mental health a lot, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or I found over the last
for your journey. Yeah, absolutely.
And the doctor said, well, what do you think about weight loss surgery? And I said, well, I know people that have done it. And he goes, I think you're a perfect candidate. So that in itself is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I started that journey in January of 2020.
Wow.
And we know what 2020 turned out to be. So I finally went under the knife. Late September of 2020. Okay. And that's the day my life changed.
Wow.
I had done what they told me to.
Sure. To prep for it.
You have to do a lot of preparation. I had to do 6 weeks of preparation going into it. Okay. So from January to September, I'd lost about 50 pounds. Okay. I had the life-changing surgery. I had the gastric bypass surgery. Okay. And I'm down 215 pounds and living my best life.
My gosh. That is incredible.
Huge, huge life change. But it's not, it wasn't a miracle cure. It was a lot of work, partnering with nutritionists and mental health. Counseling is probably my number one path to success was asking for help. Yes. Which, and getting it.
Yeah.
So
that's a major undertaking too. That's a major life change because it's one thing to do the prep and have the surgery, but then there's all the stuff afterwards of how do I stay healthy moving forward? What does that look like for me? And and I think that's probably where the whole mental health thing comes into play. I would guess. I don't want to make assumptions. So you tell me, but I'm guessing all right, now what is happening within my eating patterns, my food patterns, my choices that are in play that need to be dealt with? What are they driven by? So that I'm eating the right things for the right reasons in a healthy way. But then you're kind of left to deal with all that. You do all the prep to do the physical thing. But I would sense that the mental and emotional piece of that comes after the fact. Is that true? Or
that is so accurate. At first you're so focused on, and I went back to work. Wow. In a week and a half.
Oh my gosh.
But they were very accommodating for me and let me take a little nap in the middle of the day.
Sure. Oh.
My work family has just been such a gift to me.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. But, you get through concentrating so much on that physical part that then you get to this point, probably about 4 months out where normalcy starts coming into play.
Yeah.
And those inner demons, I call them, start talking to you. Yeah. And that's when I decided it was time to reach out. And I found a counselor that her specialty was eating disorders. And, we think of eating disorders as being anorexia and bulimia. And that's not all.
Right. It's much more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And so I started working with her in February of 21. And she was the key to me continuing that, not only in the weight loss and the eating disorder and all that, but just dealing with a lot of things that I had not dealt with in 50 years.
Yeah.
And you find out that some of that is the reason you look for comfort other places.
Absolutely.
And my comfort was stuffing food in my mouth,
Yeah.
And so you had to find that someplace else. And I also, I was a big sports person when I was a kid. I played all the sports. I did all the things, gymnastics. I twirled baton. I did basketball, volleyball, track, golf. I did it all. And because of my size, I didn't do it anymore. I just sat and watched it.
Yeah.
So I decided at a point about February when I started talking to the counselor, I'm going to go swim. And I found a place to go swim, and it was great because in 21 it was still, you had to get your own lane, and you couldn't, there was a lot of stipulations on how it worked, which was great for me.
Sure.
Because I could just book a time and go do it.
Yeah.
And swimming makes me happy. So I got so that I was swimming 2-3 days a week, and I was just, as the weight came off, the endurance and the physical body that I was creating was just incredible. I never thought that would happen.
Yeah.
I was swimming about 1,500 meters a day.
Oh my gosh.
And, and it was so great.
Wow.
And then I got to a point, what's next?
Okay.
I'm sure little ADHD brain I get bored. And so I have to find something else.
Yep.
And so I decided, I follow social media. I like my TikTok. I like my Facebook. I like Instagram. I found this gal on TikTok that decided to do 22 hard things in 2022.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, I need to make a list for myself like that. That sounds like fun. And I decided at that point that I would do a 5K every month in 2022.
Wow.
And, even at my heaviest, even at my lowest of my heaviest, I thought I would always think, I would really love to be a runner. I would really love to be a runner, but I knew physically I just couldn't.
Sure.
And, it was time. And so I got this app, Couch to 5K, and it was literally Couch to 5K. It would tell you, walk now, run now, walk now, and it picks you up. Yeah. It took me, it's a 10-week thing, but it took me about 15 weeks. And I was running a 5K. I was running 3-mile loop around my town, and that's surreal to me still that I can do that.
Yeah.
And I started in January. I wasn't up to a 5K, being able to run the whole thing yet, but January 1st, I'm in Deer Park doing a 5K. I had to walk it and it was on ice, but.
Oh my gosh. I was going to say January 1st in Deer Park. That sounds treacherous.
And then I just started finding races, and I just completed my 11th one over Thanksgiving, a turkey trot.
Wow.
And, I haven't found one for December yet, but I'm going to. Even if it has to be a virtual one. But, and I don't know what 2023 will bring, but, the goal set out, and you do have those, I still have those things in my head that, it's okay. You don't need to go outside. It's okay. You don't need to move. It's okay. Just sit and watch TV or, do something else.
Yeah.
But I know that mental health wise, getting out and exercising, however that might be, I was doing some CrossFit stuff for a while. I was doing just an exercise class that was really random, what she did every week, some yoga. I live in a small community, so we don't have a lot of amenities for that. But I would seek out every little thing that I could find to make me move. I would go work out with our volleyball team at here on conditioning day. And it was fun for me to be with the kids that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you get so much energy from that.
I do.
It's really incredible. And I think just kind of how you've been able to piece all that together. Did you know before the surgery that did you see yourself as having an eating disorder, or was that something that really came into your awareness after the fact?
It definitely came in after the fact.
Okay.
I don't think you ever visualize yourself as having a disorder.
No.
Even though I knew I ate too much.
Sure.
I knew that,
Sure.
But I didn't realize it until there were all these things I couldn't do anymore. How my mind worked. Like
sure.
The one thing that I talk about, and I go to a lot of support groups.
Yeah.
And the one thing I talk about in the bariatric community is I remember even coming home from surgery. Surgery was in Spokane. Yeah. I live 45 miles out of Spokane, and I drive through an area that is full of fast food.
Yeah.
The
Airway Heights area, man.
Fast food on both sides of the road, anything you can want,
Yeah.
And I remember even coming home from the hospital and coming up the hill out of Spokane towards Highway 2. And already my mind was thinking, which fast food joint are you going to stop at?
Wow.
And why is my brain doing that? Why is that? Why am I obsessed with that?
Right.
I'm obsessed with where I'm going to eat and what I'm going to have. And I can't eat right now. My physical body cannot eat.
Yeah.
So why am I thinking about that?
Yeah. Wow.
And it took a long time for me to get over thinking about that, to my mindset not being that way when I climbed that hill. That was definitely a habit of mine.
Sure.
And just simple things like looking at a menu at a restaurant, and my mindset at one point was, what can I get the most of? Which thing can give me the most food instead of what do I really love and who cares? And you can leave, it's okay to leave food on your plate, and it's okay to, and those were a lot of mindset things that I had to change.
Sure.
Really important things that I had to change. And I'm not perfect. Halloween kills me with candy everywhere. A school is not the easiest place to work.
Sure.
If you're nutritionally trying to do what's good for your body. Yeah. The donuts are out
every day,
twice, 3 times a week. Yeah. And it's hard.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to manage it. I have bad days. I have good days. Dealing with the eating disorder, I had binge eating disorder. A lot of us as kids weren't allowed to have sugar, weren't allowed to have, this, weren't allowed to have that. Yeah. And then as adults, it was like, oh, I can have what I want.
Exactly. No one's going to tell me I can't have that anymore.
And I'm going to have as much of it as I want.
Exactly.
And so, that's some of the demons I dealt with. And so far, so good. I keep myself in about a 10, 15 pound range. I am still pretty focused on it. Sure. Just because I want to continue being successful. Yeah.
So. Well, it's incredible. And I hope that the amount of courage and strength and just love of yourself. I mean, I think that you've got to care enough about you to make the investment. I mean, I just don't think you can take on something like this without that. How can we support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically? Because you're definitely doing that now, but you've learned to do that. Like, you have always been everybody else's rah-rah person. But then you switched the path, and it started with the going back to school piece. Talk to me about that.
It did. And I had to get, it was really difficult for me to get in that mindset, to be almost selfish.
Yes, it feels selfish.
It does feel selfish, and it feels negative selfish.
Yeah.
And now I try to think of myself as positive selfish, because
Absolutely.
I have to be good and I have to be okay to help others. And that's what fuels me, is helping others.
Yeah.
And I know that being good with myself trickles over to that.
Yeah.
So there's just so many pieces to the puzzle, the layers. You talk about the layers.
Yes. And we will get into that.
Yeah, and it's just, support. I have to put me first, but like I go to support groups in the bariatric community, and I share my story.
Okay.
I share my story on socials, and it's amazing. I shared my story when I went in to have surgery and on Facebook.
Sure.
And, once I was done, I probably have a community of 30 people from different walks of my life that have all had the surgery as well.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of are little cheerleaders for each other.
Yeah, I love that.
It's amazing, that connection that was made.
Sure. Well, and I think people hearing your story, I'm so happy to hear that you're sharing, seeing you do it gives permission for other people to do the same.
Yeah. And take charge of your life.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay to be selfish and take care of you.
Yeah.
Because that in turn is the only way to help others. I mean,
it really is.
Yeah. And in my support groups, I'm very vocal. I'm very, ask any questions about anything to me. But it's okay to ask for help too when you need it.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And just giving you, I think that asking for help, knowing it's not going to be perfect, being there and supporting each other, but having just that, I think sharing the story is so powerful, and just creating that community of support, because you can't do these things without support.
No.
You just can't.
No.
You got to have people around you that are for this and about this and are going to support this journey.
Yes. And I have a couple of friends that were struggling when I went and had my surgery. And
I bet.
And, I'm very transparent. You can ask me anything and I'll answer, and I put it out there because a lot of people don't, and that's fine. That's our choice.
Sure.
But it's been nice to be able to help people that were struggling.
Yeah.
And they're for me when I'm struggling. So
yeah,
it's a great environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not surprised at all you created that for yourself. That's very much how you're wired anyway. The importance of setting and coming back to your why and your values and everything you do. You had to have kind of, I think, for everyday life, but to do these major life things you've done over the last 4 to 5 years, a particular set of like, okay, these are my values. This is how I'm going to go on this route, because you chose a path. Because I think everybody in this has to choose the path that's best for them. You chose a path that was best for you. And I would think that the why and the values had to play a role in that. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, I was a young mother. I had my first child at 19, and I was right then, my focus was going to be raising those 3 girls and doing the best that I could and being all in, giving my all to that.
And you were.
Probably neglected my marriage, probably neglected a few things, but I was going to ensure that those 3 individuals became contributing members of society. That was my why.
Yeah.
And so I did. I was hyper focused on being a mom, and at times I was a mom to many, but those 3 were always my focus.
Yeah.
And then when they are contributing members of society and they leave your nest and they don't come back, where does that leave you?
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle with that. I don't know that I really struggled with it because I had my kids at school.
You do.
That takes that over. But it was time to be me. And who did I want to be?
Yeah.
And it was okay. It was okay to not be the doting mom anymore. And it was okay to not, to make, it's okay to not. It is.
I love that.
focus on me. What do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How do I want to be it?
Yeah.
And I know that kids are going to be in my life for my entire life. That's
Absolutely.
just who I am.
She does not come by Mama V by accident.
That's just who I am. I mean, here I am at a rival school and these kids call me Mama V, that's just who I am. I remember a girl in volleyball that knew me because she was in a school that we competed against. And she saw me at tryouts and she said, "You have a daughter?" And I was like, "Yes, this is my daughter." And she goes, "We just thought the school hired you to be the school mom."
That's so perfect. And I'm not even surprised by that.
Yeah, she was just totally in shock that I actually had children in the school too. Because I was at school all the time. I was at every event. That's just what I did. But then that was gone. But I mean, most of it, I still I go to all the kids' games and, you know me.
Absolutely.
I have to be on the go all the time. But that's my why. How can I be better to help kids? That's always been my why.
Sure.
I need to help kids, whether they're my own, whether they're my grandkids, whether they're kids. There are so many kids out there that need us.
Oh my gosh.
That don't see love, that don't see, the kids that watched my journey.
I bet. What an impact you made. My goodness.
So I have one group of kids that were here my first year, which anytime you are a first year teacher, it's rough.
Sure.
And I ended up having them for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
This is my first year without them. And
oh, wow.
It's really, and we went through COVID together.
Wow.
And and the connections I have with those kids are just, and they were such cheerleaders for me. And they, and they're pretty funny. They come back now. "We don't even remember what you looked like, Mrs. B."
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, but, and they do all these like, "Let's have a push-up contest. Let's have and they're, "What 5K are you doing this month?" They're just, they're just a special group of kids.
That's amazing.
My why is definitely to help kids in the world because to help get them on a better path.
Yeah.
If they need to, or just support them in the path they're on.
Yeah, because you're meeting them at such a crucial age too, at middle school.
Yeah,
it's such a crossroads, and you're just the perfect person for that. I mean, you just have that love for them, and they feel that.
And I think they know that I unconditionally love kids because they're kids.
Yeah,
they're going to make mistakes. They're going to, our big thing is. I only have a few rules in my classroom, and one is don't do stupid stuff. But we know they're going to do stupid stuff,
That's exactly how you would say it too. Oh my gosh.
That's what I do. Don't do stupid stuff. We have BDSS. Don't do stupid stuff. And but you have to know that they're going to.
Sure.
We all do.
Yeah, the grace and take away the shame from it all because there's
just
I think
do it again.
Yes.
Or own up to it. Don't do it again.
Yeah. What did we learn?
What did we learn? And tomorrow's a new day. And that's also my thing. I might be really angry with the kid today, and they'll know I'm upset. I'm very on the outside. They know if I'm happy or not. But tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
They're kids.
Living out of your own expectations versus others. So many roads we could go down here. I think that, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and there's definitely the physical aspect of the change in you. I mean, those of us that knew you before and after, it's really remarkable, but it's so much deeper than that for me. I mean, it's just so much about more than that piece of it. And I would think too, in terms of, you talked about relationships that have changed. And so talk to me about, expectations for yourself, how those have changed. Just talk to me about expectations, yours versus others in this whole journey.
So I think that's one of my boundaries. I try not to listen to others' expectations.
Love that.
Because, I had an interesting childhood with having siblings that were 15 and 16 years older than me.
Yeah.
Who both were very successful humans in their realms.
Sure.
And that was hard to follow.
Yeah.
And then I'm just a mom, I don't have a title. I don't have a degree. I don't have and that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's something I dealt with counseling.
I bet
you need to empower yourself.
Yeah.
You're the only one that can make those decisions.
Yeah.
You're the only one that makes those judgments. And learning to not judge yourself.
Sure.
Is so hard. So I worked through that a lot. And what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What can I do to get there? Yeah. And I think that was the big turning point. What can I do to get there? Well, I have to do.
Right. I can't just sit here and want it and talk about it, think about it. I got to take some action steps.
Yeah. My kids tease me because I'm the queen of notebooks. I have notebooks everywhere because I write out my stuff a lot.
Sure.
I write out my dreams. I write out my plans. I write out lists. I write out, but then I would put the notebook away. Mm-hmm. But now I write a list and let's do the list. I am capable. I am worthy. I need to do that. Yeah. It'll make me, in the end, it makes you feel so good to accomplish something.
Oh my gosh.
And you can't accomplish something if you don't do.
Right. Right.
That whole, you're not going to reach anything if you don't try. Yeah. And it doesn't always work. And there are hiccups and there are, but, and my expectations sometimes are too high. And I don't reach the pinnacle, but I'm a lot further than I was.
Absolutely.
Just sitting there thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So. And I would think too, just like there had to be some second guessers, doubters around you too in this process, and being able to shut down those voices and not let them deter you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very much so. It's pretty interesting. My family dynamic. My mom was actually one of the people that was kind of a naysayer. Wow. And we have kind of a tumultuous relationship anyway. Yeah. And there's where some of my boundaries have come up. Sure. And, but other people that, you'll gain the weight back. Oh, you'll never get a teaching job. Oh, and you just have to, I've gotten to the point that I almost feel sorry for those people because they're putting me down for a reason.
Well, and they're putting those parameters on themselves.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's no way to live your fullest life.
No, exactly. Exactly. So, I definitely dropped all the negativity in my life. So, if you want to be that way, that's fine. And you don't need to be a part of this journey. Sure. And I found so many people that were so positive and so excited and, and just so I have the greatest coworkers and boss that have been just so supportive. Yeah. And a community here that has been so supportive that, I just, that's the big part of my success is those people that just are positive like me, that want to help others. I found that the more I help people and allow people to help me, I find those like-minded people.
Yeah, you're drawn to each other.
Yes, very much so.
accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. This has to have been quite, I'm surmising, a journey through all of this. So talk to me about the layers.
Oh, the layers.
I know. We say with
you got it. Just think you got it figured out, and oh my.
Yeah, you peel back another one.
It's amazing how much of our life stays with us as we keep growing.
Sure.
I hope to never quit growing.
Right. Absolutely.
Same. I have this. I always want to be learning something.
Yeah.
And there's so much out there to learn.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. But, finding out what you really like to do starts peeling back those.
Sure.
I think my social anxiety contributed to me not doing a lot of the things that I like to do. And people laugh at me when I say I have social anxiety because I'm a people person. I have to be around people.
5,000%.
Yeah. I talk to every stranger. My joy comes from listening to other people's stories, but I had huge social anxiety and, it's definitely a lot less now.
Sure.
I still have it a little bit. There's times where I don't want to go to things because it doesn't feel good.
Sure.
And so I think, dealing with that emotion.
Yeah.
Recognizing that I'm sure if I was a child right now, I'd be diagnosed with some kind of ADHD or
those things, they just didn't have it when we were kids. They weren't talking about it. You were the hyperactive kid or the distracted kid, but there was no help, no resources.
Right.
And you were sent to the principal's office if you were too rowdy.
Yeah. And start things and not finish them. And,
and not complete assignments. And people are like, oh, they don't get it or they aren't smart. No, they're plenty smart. They're just not being reached in the way that they need to be reached. Yeah.
And I get bored in everyday life. Sometimes people tease me about taking off and just going somewhere. Well, I need that. I need that stimulation.
Yeah.
Recognizing that in myself was a big piece of the puzzle.
Sure.
My need for family. I definitely, I was so devoted to my kids. I lost time with my siblings.
Yeah. And you've spent a lot of time with them the last few years.
I have. I've spent a lot of time and we've been very, we've made that time.
Sure. It's been intentional.
Intentional. Yes. It's been very intentional that we get together 3 or 4 times a year at the least.
Yeah.
And that we make those sacrifices so we can be together.
Sure.
I try to get to whatever they invite me to, if I can.
Yeah.
And they do the same. I mean, my daughter just got married a few weeks ago and both my brother and sister flew in for the reception and flew out the next day, but they were here. And that just means so much to me. And,
sure.
And in turn, I want to be there for them anytime.
Yeah.
And they're getting older. They're 70 soon. And because they're older than I am. And I don't want to lose that time.
Right.
And they're important. They're my important family. So, and it's good. And it's good to see the relationships they have with my daughters. Because they are very successful, successful, not only like professionally, but successful, just good humans.
Yeah. I think that's an important part to remember is just that for that successful as who you are as a person.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
So there's that, and there's just, it's when my friends talks about, it's almost like we have cubbies. And we have this family cubby and we have this work cubby and we have this. And I think of that as the layers. I have all these cubbies. Yeah. And I get into some of them more frequently than I get into others.
Yeah.
But I'm only doing those cubbies that bring me joy.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional about that.
And I think you've done a really amazing job, at least from watching, of accepting all those parts of ourselves. Because in our layers, they're made up of all of our stories, all of our parts, the parts that we love, the parts that are hard, the parts that we'd rather not have, all those things. And I think this journey, I at least from watching you from afar, you've done this amazing job of taking all of those things that make you who you are. And now you're like, okay, these are the parts that bring me joy, but also recognizing, I think that these are the parts that got me where I am today, and being okay with all of that. And that's a journey in itself.
Yeah. Accepting ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I am who I am, and this is me, and I'm okay with that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you want to judge me, that's fine, but you're going on this list. That is,
exactly. You don't get to be in that cubby anymore.
No,
there's a cubby at the end of the road for you.
The do not disturb cubby,
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I live life now. If it doesn't, if it doesn't give me positive feelings, I know we all talk about positive vibes only, but really, if it's not something a necessity of your life, and it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it.
Absolutely. Life's too short. And I think, I think it requires us to feel all the feelings that come with that, to sort through what that is.
Yes.
You just have to. Yeah. It's not just, you're like, okay, I've recognized, and listening to our bodies will tell us, we spend so many years, I know both you and I have, in different ways, ignoring the signals our bodies were sending us. And our bodies will tell us if we're in safe spaces, good spaces, healthy spaces, but you just got to take the time to listen and not feel bad about it.
Yeah. And that's the key, not feel bad about it. And it's okay to, if it's not a healthy space for you, it's okay to not be there.
Yeah. Yeah. You give yourself permission.
And that's difficult. And giving yourself permission. If, like I was talking about my social anxiety, it's okay to not be at every event. Yeah. It is okay. It's okay to not go to a birthday party. It's okay to not go to a wedding you're invited to. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's so important. In Living Out Feel, Finding Empowerment, Embracing Layers, which you are the poster person for, I feel like. How has this affected your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others?
For once in my life, I can say I really love myself. And I'm 52. That took a long time, Melissa. Yeah. But I do. I love myself. I'm proud of myself. I accept myself. I know I'm not perfect. I know, and it's okay. Yeah. That whole line, it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. It is okay. And it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay. And it's okay to be yourself and be who you are. Yeah. And like I said, just push out those things that don't help you.
They don't serve you. Yeah. Well, and how has that changed your relationships with people you love? I mean, now that you're in this space, I would think that had to have an effect there too.
Oh yeah. I can't tell you the number of people that I am involved with that just, they love the positivity. And we have a great time, and we just do what feels good, and whether it be, and I'm very intentional about, like, I have friends all over the United States, just like when I was in Chicago, and I'm like, hey, Melissa Crook, let's get together. I'm very intentional about that. I know where I have kids in college that I had been a teacher to. And I'll stop if I go by and, hey, let's get coffee. I have friends from when I was in high school that I'll just say, hey, let's go have dinner if I'm in a town where they live. Sure. But I just, my fuel is to be with people. Yes. I need to feed that fuel, and that's how I do that. I'm very intentional about getting my friends together. And sometimes I get a little I might get bitter sometimes about that. I'm always the one doing it, but that's my fuel. So I need to do that.
Right. And you recognize that about yourself.
Yeah. It's really important. My work family, I feel like they appreciate my positivity. Mm-hmm. We've gone through a lot together the last 4 years. And,
oh my gosh.
And we've had to be there for each other.
Yeah, I think that's really key. All of my teacher friends and educator friends that I talk to talk about that piece of those showing up and being for each other, because it was kind of you just went through things that nobody had gone through before. Right. There was no one to tell you how to walk through this particular path as an educator and how to help those kids, because we'd never had a scenario like that before. So everybody I've talked to in that world is like, that community was so important because we're figuring it out together on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. It was different every day. And it was just a little bit crazy. And we never knew if we were making the right decisions. Yeah. But we were making decisions and we were trying our best.
Yeah.
And I'm in middle school. It's not like life or death that we learned the periodic table.
Yeah. Right.
But I think it's important to let them know that they're going to succeed. That give them that mindset of you can do it.
Yeah.
And you can create a path that you enjoy, and get them excited about learning and love them. I mean, there's so many kids out there that don't get that. That's really imperative to me that I give that to my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do in spades. I know that about you. Well, I think the socialization piece for middle schoolers, they didn't get hit like the early elementary kids did with those basic principles, or the high school seniors that lost their graduation and their prom and those things. But the socialization piece for those middle school kids is at such a crucial time too.
Well, and the differences of being home for some of them.
Yeah. Right. Whether it's safe or not, whether they're getting a meal or not.
Exactly.
What kind of support do they have? Do they have Wi-Fi? Exactly.
And that is just so huge. And, a lot of them, this is their safe spaces coming to school.
Yeah.
And so, it was interesting to live through. I mean, and I'm sure we'll see the repercussions for, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Decades.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We talked about our 20-somethings going through.
Yeah.
And how it's changed them.
Yeah.
And so,
interesting. Wow. We could talk about that's an episode by itself. Okay, my friend, we are down to our rapid fire. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Exercise, social events, like even in just going out for coffee.
Yeah.
Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Whether it be at school, whether it be at a basketball game, kids, friendships. I have many long standing friendships, and I might go like you and we might go 10 years without talking to one another. And it's just like, I saw you yesterday.
Yeah. We picked up right where we left off.
Yeah, that's just who we are. And I think that's important. My 5th one, I just love listening to people's stories. That fuels me, and it doesn't, and it might be a kid that needs to talk, or it might be a coworker that wants to tell me about their adventure or whatever. I just love listening to people's stories. It makes my heart happy.
Yeah. I want to talk about, I know it's supposed to be rapid fire, but what do you think drove your passion for kids? Because if you know this woman, it's palpable. And this has been consistent with her, the whole time I've known her. What do you think is the driver behind that?
I don't know exactly. It's kind of funny to think about it, because I did reflect on that a bit.
Sure.
I grew up in a rural area. And my siblings were gone by the time I was there.
You were so much younger. Yeah.
And there were no kids for at least a mile radius.
Okay.
And so I was on my own a lot, and I was on the farm, and I had grandma and grandpa next door, and
Yeah.
And went to a rural school where there were only like 20 of us in the class,
Sure.
20 to 30, and we all went to school forever together. And, and my mom had me very active in different lessons, swim team in the summer and whatever, gymnastics, whatever there was. And when I was about, 12, I started volunteering at the YMCA, swimming lessons. And I started teaching little kids swimming lessons. And I knew then that kids were my thing. And, but it's kind of funny to think about because, I had these very successful siblings.
Yeah.
And, teaching wasn't good enough at that point in my life.
Wow.
So I went to college thinking I needed to be pre-med or pre-law because you had to. It's
the expectations thing creeping up again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I did that path and I ended up not finishing.
Yeah.
And, it took me a long time to accept that this is my calling.
Yeah, it is.
It just is. And there's no denying that, it doesn't matter what realm I'm in, kids are my jam.
They are. And there's so much power in that. I mean, you show up. There's just not enough of people like you that are showing up for these kids and making a difference in their lives. I mean, I can't imagine something more important than that. We talk about what success looks like.
Yeah.
What you're providing them, you can't quantify that.
No. And it's rewarding in such a unique way.
Yeah.
Like, those kids that come back 20 years later and tell you that you were the reason they whatever.
Yeah.
Insert whatever here.
I bet you have 1,000 of those stories.
Oh, I do. And it's just so incredible. And you just don't realize the impact that you make. Yeah. It's not an intentional thing. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
I one of my favorite stories is a kid that went into the military after high school. And he messaged me on Facebook about 2 years after that. And he says, if it wasn't for me yelling at him in the 5th grade, he would have never turned out the way he did. And he was very sincere and very, I was the turning point in his life, making him get his homework done in the 5th grade.
Wow.
And I love that. I love those stories. I love the kids that come back to talk to me or just watching them be successful in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Ooh. Confident. I want to keep that confidence feeling. It's easy, especially in the winters in the Northwest.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We just recorded we're going to be dropping a seasonal depression episode here in a couple of weeks.
That's so good, because that's a thing and that's real.
It is. Yeah.
I want to remain confident, and that's something I have to work on.
Yeah.
It's easy for those inner demons to come out.
Yeah.
And they never go away.
No, I think that's something that I had to really accept. I thought I was going to walk into therapy, get some tools, hash out some trauma, and walk out the door and be done with it. And that's just not how it goes.
Yeah, that's totally not how it works.
No.
But we learned that we recognize those things that are part of us, that will always be part of us. And how can we embrace those differently?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And not be not have a negative connotation to everything that's not perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So true.
Oh yeah. So confident. I want to keep enthusiastic. That's another word. Winter.
Yeah.
The takeaway, suck the life out of you sometimes.
Yeah. And y'all just got dumped on a couple days ago, snow-wise. So it has started.
And then let's add that I have a classroom with no windows. The outside world. So there will be days in December where I come to work in the dark and I go home in the dark and I never see the light of day.
Yeah. So I don't know, for people that don't understand, if you live in the state of Washington, which if you look at a map, it is in the lower 48, it's the northernmost state. It's not Maine or the UP or whatever. It's actually the state of Washington. And folks, right now, we're recording this in early December. At 4:00, it is dark. Yes. I am not talking about it's starting to. It is dark at 4 p.m. and the sun rises at what? 7:30?
Yeah, after 7:00.
Yeah. So literally 4 teachers, if they're, if school starts at, especially middle school starts at, 7:45, 8:00, whatever, you're walking in the door at 7 to prep, maybe 6:30, depending on the day. And you are walking out the door by the time school gets out at 4-ish. It's literally like that. Yep. So I don't think I live in West Texas right now. And, we have, it gets dark here by like 5:30, 5:45. And when I tell people, I'm like 4:00, and they're like, nah, I'm like, no, for real. So I just wanted to confirm, this is an actual thing.
This is
not Alaska, but for the lower 48, you get about 7-8 hours of daylight when you're correct.
And I have my artificial sun lamp that I use.
Perfect.
Part of the year, but it still doesn't, so I'm trying to keep enthusiastic, confident, excited. And I want to feel successful. I'm a very goal-oriented person.
Yeah.
And, I have to evolve those goals sometimes.
Yeah.
But I want to feel successful and I want to feel helpful. So
there's no doubt you are that by 1,000. But I know what it's like, though, when you're perceived a way, but you have to believe that about yourself and you want to feel that about yourself. And it's not the same as someone else. It's great to have affirmations and people call that out in you, but it's really important that you can feel that and believe that about yourself.
Yeah, it's funny how we can get a mindset of how something is and we're totally wrong about it, and how that changes our life. I went to my 30th high school reunion and there was a girl there and we were talking and we'd grown up from preschool together.
Sure.
And I was always upset because I never got invited to her birthday parties. I never got invited to her birthday parties. And come to find out, she knew that I had baton lessons on Saturdays. And so they never invited me because they knew I had lessons.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't because I wasn't the cool kid. It wasn't because anything else that I had made up in my mind. It was just
the stories we tell ourselves that we decide are truth, that they're just stories.
And how silly is that? 40 years later that we're finally figuring out that no, she didn't think I was a terrible person. She was being considerate of my life.
Yeah, that's such a good example. And how many times we do that? Wow.
We do it all the time. And
we do.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are my 5 words.
I love those. Those are great. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been, I've just been so excited to talk to you and hear this journey and share it with our audience. Field Podcast, like I said earlier, you can find these resources on our website, embracinglayers.com, when the episode drops. Check out those documents. There'll be a blog. We'll have it on our social media spaces. And you'll get a chance to learn from Mama V and what a treat that is. So thank you so much, friend, for being here. It's been too long. So glad to connect. And audience, if you have any questions, you can email us, embracinglayers@gmail.com, throw us a DM at Embracing Layers. But thanks so much for joining us and have a great week.